I'll call to order.
Thank you.
Meeting will call to order for the June meeting of the Grandview Heights Schools. Start with Beth. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bodie?
Here.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Here.
Mr. Gousset?
Here.
Mrs. Matney is absent, and Ms. Wassman.
Here.
I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We move to the minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Beth, call the roll, please.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Ms. Wassman.
Aye.
We have recognitions and presentation. Very good one, starting with, is it Beth or Andy that's going to talk about this one?
Yeah, so we have with us tonight Tori Hubner from the Auditor of State, Keith Faber's office, and she has a presentation for our most recent audit.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So thank you for having me. And as Beth mentioned, I am Tori. I'm the regional liaison for Auditor of State Keith Faber. So just a little bit about our office. We audit just about 6,000 entities throughout the state. And this Auditor of State award, only about 8% of people are even eligible for the award, and even less attain it. So this is a really big deal. And I believe Grandview's won this award almost every year, if not every year, the last 8 years. So it's a really great track record. We see that when entities are able to achieve the award, they tend to keep achieving it. So that is a testament to the board, to the school employees, and most especially the treasurer's office. So what the award criteria includes is making sure that it is a clean audit. There's no findings for recovery. There's no ethical referrals that we have. Your financial statements are all in order. So this is a very big deal, and I know that there's a lot of pieces and parts going into it. So we just like to recognize when we have good government, because a lot of times you hear about bad government. So we like to shine a light on when we have good people in public service doing good things with taxpayer dollars. So I will present this to Beth, and then if Beth wants to say a few words. So do you want to take a picture, or do you want to talk?
We
now?
clap?
Whatever you want.
Can we clap?
Okay.
We should clap.
I'm like, can we clap? Yay! Oh. Cool. All right, I feel.
We'll look proud back here.
Yes. Excellent. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Very appreciate it. And I will also add that this is really a reflection of the work that all of us do as a team. So it's not just the treasurer's office. It's collectively our entire organization and leadership teams. So.
It's the team, but it's Beth.
That's right. It's Beth.
It's Beth.
It's Beth.
Thank you. And Tori, thank you for coming. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
And
Thank you.
Appreciate the recognition. Andy.
Mr. Bradley, would you mind coming to the podium? Just maybe stand right there, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So, wanted to just say a few words about Mr. Bradley. So, it has been a true honor and privilege working with Brett Bradley for the last 8 years. Brett has served the students, staff, and residents of Grandview Heights for 12 years. He will be officially retiring at the end of July, and he and his wife, Nancy, will be making their way to Russell, Kentucky. When I think about Brett and our time working together, the following themes come to mind. Number one, Brett is exceedingly hardworking. He's often, if not always, the first to arrive on campus, and many times the last to leave. Secondly, Brett is willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And there's nothing that Brett would ask anyone to do that he wouldn't do himself. Thirdly, he's selfless. Analogous to what I just said, that he wouldn't ask anyone to do what he wouldn't do himself. Brett is very, very selfless. He's all about the team. He's all about we. He's responsive. If I call him, he either answers or calls me back, no matter whether it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., midnight, and I've called him at all those times. He's dedicated. He is a bobcat through and through. Lastly, in terms of themes, he shows up. Whenever, however, wherever he's needed. One of the things Brett says all the time is, you call, we haul. And that's true. He is gracious and a gentleman, and the best building tour guide our district has to offer. He knows these buildings inside and out and like the back of his hand. Brett gave countless building tours for the months on end during our master facilities planning process. I am confident in saying that Brett knows the crooks and crannies of this and all of our buildings. On behalf of the Board of Education, the administration, staff, students, and families, and all the residents, a heartfelt thank you to Brett Bradley. All of us wish you the very, very best, and we thank you for your service, your time, your dedication. We thank you for your friendship. We thank you for your professionalism. Typically, and we do have chimes for you, and a corresponding poem that you'll be able to hang at your eventual new home in Russell, Kentucky. However, we had a challenge in finding them. So either they've been lost, but we will get you a new pair if we can't find them.
Okay.
So just so you know, coming attractions, there are chimes on the way. So Brett, this is your opportunity to say a few words if you'd like.
Well, yeah, I'm appreciative of the board supporting me for the last 12 years. And it's been, Andy's filled it all in. It's hard to say. But yeah, I enjoy being here. I came out of hard industry when I hired in here. I mean, I'm talking hard industry. You're talking large shovels going out of the country. That when I got here, I felt like I was more home than anything else. And it's been great these 12 years, me being here. I've met a lot of good people here. I mean, everybody. And I'm kind of sad I'm leaving, but I'm very happy I am. I'll tell you my age. I'll be 67 years. I am 67 years old this week.
You just had a birthday.
Yeah, I just had a birthday. So, yeah, my wife and I want to go home. That's where we started dating in the 7th grade in Russell, Kentucky, and we want to go back. And I promised her I'd get her back.
Yeah, excellent. Beth, will you come up and get a picture with me and Brett?
Yeah,
Do you mind?
yeah.
Let's face this way, Haley. Flip it. You're in the middle, Brett. A rose between two thorns.
I like primary colors. You're right. See, you smiled during the photo.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for
I smiled.
And Brett, on behalf of the board, thank you as well. I know it's a role that all your dedication, you've really made a difference to the environment here.
I put it in when I took the move out of industry, that, yeah, this is where I need to be the best.
It makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
There's always a time at the board meeting where we offer an option of speaking before the board. Is there anybody who would like to speak this time?
We'll see how you do it.
Come back to that if we need.
I like it. I like it.
Well, with the board's permission, I would like to take something out of order. We have a guest here. Ryan is here tonight, and I think this will be a fairly short item instead of making you wade through everything else. We do have under what's listed under Roman numeral 11, Business and Finance, number 10 and 11. It's the Grandview Heights Public Library tax budget and the Grandview Heights Public Library Board of Trustee appointing of a member. And so could I ask you to come up and maybe say a few words about these? I know it's a little odd arrangement that we have a role with the library, but thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Good evening. It's good to see everybody. So the first item before you is the Grandview Heights Public Library's tax budget. And that budget is required to be submitted to the county auditor in order for the library to receive its share of the state funding. So we need to present a budget to that budget commission, and it goes through our taxing authority. And the school district is technically our taxing authority, meaning that your service area lines up with our service area. So it is kind of a formality at this point. But we submit this budget so that we can get our share of the state funding. The second item that's before you is a request for a reappointment of Gene King, one of our current board members. Our board met last month and unanimously voted to request that this Board of Education appoint Gene to another term. The library board members' terms are 7 years. So we usually have one every year, and there's a 7-member board. And if you're not familiar, in Ohio, boards and commissions are appointed by the highest ranking elected officials in their service area. So there are county libraries, and there are municipal libraries, and there are school district libraries. And obviously, you're the highest ranking elected officials in our service area. Does that make sense?
Well, maybe first I could ask if there's a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to approve Roman numeral 11, item 10 and 11.
I will second.
And would we have a discussion or any questions?
Congratulations on your renewal levy
Thank you.
passage. That was great passage rate per usual.
Yes, we're really very pleased and appreciative of all the support and our partnership with the school district. I think it was one of the highest, if not the highest, approval ratings in the entire state for a public library. So we were very pleased to receive that. I think it was 87.5%. So really appreciate that. And we really appreciate and the value of the partnership that we have with the schools here. It's really key to our success.
We appreciate, I know my child was one that often went over to the library, and I know that the whole system there has been very accommodating to the school kids, especially after school, and all the programs that you do. So good partnership.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We also just recently received our 5-star rating for the 14th consecutive year, which we're really pleased of. I think we're now down to only one of 6 or 7 libraries in the entire country that have received that rating. So really proud of that, and that really comes from great support of both the school district, the residents, our volunteers. It's a great staff, so it's definitely a group effort.
Beth, would you call the roll?
Yeah, Mr. Bodie.
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt.
Aye.
Mr. Gousset.
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman.
Aye.
Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
everybody.
Thanks
Have a
for
great
having
evening,
me.
and thanks for moving me up. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Have a good evening.
Enjoy the summer night.
It's hot.
All right, back to our regularly scheduled program. We are now going to the presentation of the K-12 Athletic Complex. I believe Steve Turks is there, along with Amy and Corey, and that's it. Yep. So welcome.
Like, who do I look at?
Steve, can you hear us?
I guess.
You're in Steve too close. Hold on, Steve, we're not hearing you. Try it again, Steve.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, but let's try this. Now talk. Well, unfortunately, you're not coming out of the big speakers, but let's do this. All right, Steve, can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a little bit of an echo on our end, but we'll deal with it.
Okay, well, I'm going to kick this off tonight. Thank you all for having us, and Hopefully we'll get you out to a warm summer evening there. We are taking this opportunity to update the board and answer any questions that you may have about our process, where we're about halfway through. We'll share with you first the workshops that we are conducting. There's 3. We started the first one in mid-May, just had one a couple weeks ago in June, the beginning of June, and our next one is upcoming in late July. So in between each of these workshops, we have the workshop during the day and then a community meeting to update the community afterwards. So we've had 2 of those so far. We also, again, you'll see the board update is here under workshop 3 before the July 19th meeting. We want to talk to you about when that might best occur. And we've got one that's not even showing up here, which is what we're doing tonight. So we want to just keep you apprised and answer any questions as this develops. We've got some really exciting stuff to share with you. So part of our, trying to click through here, the first thing that we did in that first workshop and prior to the first workshop was do an existing facilities condition assessment. So we're going to share that overview with you tonight. We did share the overview of the workshop committee. And then the next workshop, we focused on the first iteration of programmatic options and analysis. We came up with a program out of that first workshop with all the spaces and items that you need on the site. And then we confirmed that in the second workshop. And the third workshop, we will have refined options and a budget tied to those options. So just to reiterate, workshop 2, our goals were to share the programmatic elements and to get confirmation on that. And then we shared many program options, which we'll share with you. And the goal was to arrive at consensus, which we did. And Corey's going to jump in and share a little bit of the early assessment process with you.
Hey everyone. So as Amy mentioned, we did an existing conditions facility assessment a few months back. For this assessment, we walked around the site with all of our engineers, as well as ourselves and a few others, to get a good gauge of what the site looks like today and what needs it has in the immediate short term, maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, and then also a long-term look ahead. So for this assessment, we broke the buildings down into architectural elements, structural elements, MEPA site, etc., and looked very closely at these to kind of break it into these 3 buckets from just what's there right now. Well, I guess at that assessment, we really used that to assess, and you'll see later on, I believe, the dollar amounts for what it would take to bring the current facilities up to a workable condition, meeting codes and meeting the needs that you guys have today, without adding any program that may or may not be desired moving forward. So we took that assessment and we brought it to the workshop 1. And out of workshop 1, we came up with these survey results, or these are both survey results, but also themes that we heard at that first workshop. And they were very similar. So I guess we have them separately, but they're very similar items. A lot about accessibility on the site, Title IX. There was a lot of talk about safety and security, what the facility wants to be during the day, but also is there, how is it treated for security at night? It's a very tight site, as you guys are very well aware, and so efficiently using the space is important. Aesthetics, there was some talk about the gates and the bell that's there and some of the traditional elements that are on the site today, and also just creating a space that would be of high quality, is easier to maintain and sustainable to move into the future. So I'll pass it over to Steve here as he'll talk about how we've moved forward from that first workshop.
one of the big things we tried to accomplish at the first, and did accomplish at the first workshop, was to gain an understanding from the workshop committee of the various programmatic needs that occur on the site or perhaps want to occur on the site. And from those conversations, we developed a list of programmatic elements, attached some square footages to those based on understanding of, for instance, number of lockers needed in a locker room, or the size of a team, storage requirements, understanding of existing concessions, and ADA requirements that would require a little bit more square footage for that. So things like that. Having adequate restroom facilities for that campus to handle the capacity of the stadium. So what's on the screen right now is not something that we intend for you to read. We can certainly supply. I think the district does have copies of this if you want to look at it in detail. But the net by sort of bottom line on this, in terms of spaces inside of buildings, we do account for what needs to happen sort of with turfed areas, play fields separately, but inside buildings, I think we were in the neighborhood of 16,000 square feet overall in terms of needs. And so if you go to the next slide, Amy. One of the other things that we've been working on with the assessment that Corey mentioned, excuse me, is taking that assessment and turning it into cost or budget to address those needs. Now, Corey mentioned, and he's right, that the assessment is not trying to handle future programs or program deficiencies. It is basically looking at, and this is important to understand, that the dollars that are attached to it are trying to fix through that first bucket that you see up there at the top, repairing what is there to bring it into a situation where it would meet needs today. Not necessarily handling Title IX, for instance, but handling ADA. If the roof needs to be replaced, we know the track is probably a good example. We know the track needs to be replaced, not just the track wear surface, but the base surfaces to the track. If you go ahead and walk around the track, you'll find some areas where there's some cracking that is not just the top layer. So repairing what is there. Now, as we have moved into, and we are in the process of doing this, and we'll share at our next, we'll share some options we shared in our workshop 2. In our next session with you, we're going to share refinements of those. But the options that we'll share in a moment really begin to address the second 2 buckets. How do we renovate or rebuild to handle programmatic needs? Okay, so the first set of costs that, in terms of relative to the repair cost, consider that, and I would encourage you to consider that as sort of a baseline cost. It'd be a very typical thing for us to do, which is why we're doing it, is to sort of establish this baseline cost so that any master plan option that addresses programmatic needs can be compared to that baseline cost. You need a new track. Somewhere in the future there's going to be new turf needed. Any number of other issues with the current campus that need to be addressed. There's any number of paving issues, for instance, that exist currently. So in the context of the master plan, it's, and I hate to belabor this point, it is sometimes, there has been a tendency we've seen on certain projects where the cost of an option, so it is compared to, well, we don't really have to do anything. We just keep it status quo. Well, status quo has dollars attached to it, which is really what we're talking about. And it's also important to understand that the costs that have been captured, we gave the assessment information to Concord Addis. They've attached the dollars to it, which I'll share in a moment. But it's important to understand that the dollars that have been attached are total project cost, fully loaded numbers, not just bricks and mortar, the material to buy the new track and the installation of it, but the soft costs associated with it. design and engineering services, construction management services, permitting, if there's any furniture or equipment needs, those are captured in the total cost. So that's an important thing to understand, that it was capturing the sort of the total picture. And with that, what this is doing, this slide is, it's helping understand that the vast majority of the needs, over 3/4 of the needs, actually fall into that 0 to 5 year time frame. So much earlier on than later on. There's about just upwards of 20% of the needs from a cost standpoint, a dollar standpoint, during that 5 to 10. Once you get past that, it really tapers off quite dramatically. And so the next slide is going to actually share the numbers. Now, it's important to know, you can see the bottom line number, the total, if you total all three of those categories, those buckets, $7.4 million. It's a significant amount of money in terms of the needed repairs. The 5.8 of that is in that first time frame that I just mentioned. What you're seeing in the upper left there is Concord has quite a bit of backup on every single line item. As Corey mentioned, we went through architecturally and looked at bricks and mortars, roofs, exterior walls. For instance, the exterior wall on the storage building, it's got sort of a plastered surface on it, which is failing. The need to fix that. So all those line items are captured, and the sort of bottom line totals are shared with you here: 5.8, 1.5, and 125. As I mentioned, it really falls off quite dramatically, because we really have addressed most of the needs in the first 10 years. The turf surface, for instance, is in that second bucket time frame. I'm pretty sure. This is just gives you a little bit more. We could zoom in on this. I'm not sure that we really need to. But let's look real quickly at the options that we shared at Workshop 1. I'm sorry, Workshop 2. What we did to develop these was we took all those programmatic thoughts and ideas from Workshop 1 that were expressed and began to diagram them, test fit them onto the current site. These I will share with you from option 1 through option 4, stair step up in intensity, both in intensity of sort of renovation or new construction, and therefore while we don't have cost established with these yet, they will stair step up in cost as well. I'll try to give you sort of the big picture overview. We could really spend quite a bit of time talking about these in detail, but from a big picture standpoint, what I'll do is I'll start on the right side of the screen. I'll move my way to the left side of the screen. The first thing I'll point out is it's customary for north to be typically up on a page, on a map. It's late. We've got this late on its side just for formatting reasons. It fits better on a horizontal slide if north is to the left. So West 5th is over there to the left. The high school, you're just seeing the high school roof sort of peek out on the border on the right. Obviously across the street from that, in this option is replacing the 6-lane track. It's forming, every one of these options is trying to form sort of a new gateway, a new entry across from the high school, so that's captured here. We're keeping as we work our way sort of now to the north, or to your left, we're keeping the existing concessions, although we're adding to it. Currently, there is a little concession storage building, so the notion here is to keep that building, fix it, expand it so that it's we're meeting ADA accessibility, and bring storage with it, so we don't have to go outside to get something and bring it back into the concessions. Just moving along now, North Star, staying on that side of the site. This option, again, starting with a base cost option, keeps the existing home bleachers and renovates them. So it'd be providing full ADA access, renovating bathrooms, renovating the locker rooms. And then keep moving along that side. We would keep the Colburn building and build a new locker room building to So every one of the options that you're going to see has the same programmatic elements. They're just configured in different ways. So build a new locker room building to increase locker capacity. One of the big issues on the current campus, as I'm sure you're all aware, is Title IX. There are football lockers, or basically boy locker rooms there, and no female locker rooms. So we're bringing, solving for the Title IX issue. We're not replacing the turf here, but we are replacing the track. We're handling what's called the D rings on the track. Those would be a new synthetic surface, not dissimilar to what's on the track. In fact, it might be exactly the same surface. But handling some of the field sports, track and field sports in those long jump, pole vault, high jump. We would be replacing the visitor bleachers in all the scenarios. Those are beyond, right at that threshold of their useful life. So those are being replaced. As we work our way up Fairview, you'll note that there's a new visitors concessions building and some restrooms for that side of the field. And next to that, we are consolidating what are now sort of disparate little cell tower equipment, ground level equipment buildings into one consolidated building, which is just much more efficient use of space on the site. Now, between what you all call the upper field to the left and the track area, the turf area, there's a berm currently. We know we need to deal with that. So these options are dealing either with a retaining wall, or in some cases, you're going to see a building in that center zone that deals with that grade transition. But to create, one of your issues on your site, not lost to you, is you don't have a lot of it. And so we're trying to maximize the play space, the field space, and in doing that, adding a retaining wall so that we can create more level playing surface. And so you're seeing just left of that retaining wall a spot for shot put and discus for field and track event. And then in this option, again, a more base option, keeping the baseball field where it is, using current and existing bleacher seating, dugouts, and even the concessions, but moving the baseball field in a southwest direction to get you a more distance between home plate and backstop. Right now, I think you've got 20 to 25 feet, which is really subpar for a high school field. The desired, if you sort of out of the book, would be 60 feet. Doing 60 feet really compromises a foul line. In this case, it would be your home plate, or your first base foul line. So 40 feet is frankly a compromise situation. Sort of that compromise between getting a more generous foul, space to catch foul balls, and that first base foul line. So that's really option one. Let's move on to option two. Now, what option two is doing is it's beginning to stair step up in intensity. It looks at, it's sort of same formal entry across from the high school. It's the same replacement of the track and the D rings at either end of the track. But in this option, the move is from a 6-lane to an 8-lane track. Now, I will share with you now that through the conversations in workshop 2, the committee didn't come out of that recommending an 8-lane track. And so the options that are moving forward that we're working on right now to be shared at our next session don't include an 8-lane track. Felt like one of the reasons for that, and really one of the big reasons for that, is with 8-lane tracks, you can hold larger invitational track meets, but the site, it puts a lot of pressure on the site. If you've got 10 or 15 teams there, you got team buses, more parents, more parking. It's a hard thing to do, and with the site of this size. And so the recommendation was to stay with, replace the 8-lane track, or it's a 6-lane with a 6-lane. The important part of this, which I didn't mention on the last option, and if you might just go back to that for a second, is what we call the spur runs off to the north instead of the south, which is really important to get a common start and stop area for the straightaways. And so that's going to be a common thread through all the options, whether we were looking at an 8-lane or a 6-lane track. Now, let's move back to to option 2A. This option is replacing the home bleachers. It does replace the concessions building. It adds, right next to the home bleacher, it adds restrooms and ticketing into that. It adds a new building, what we are sort of affectionately calling or have nicknamed the Banana Building at the north end of the track, because it bends itself around the track. That is for lockers, the trainer is there, and you can see the items listed up there on the top of the sheet. So in this case, in option 2A, it's contemplated to be a 2-story building. There is an option 2B, and really the only difference between option 2A and 2B is in option 2B, it's a 1-story building. We'll look at that in just a moment. Just to the east of the Banana Building is a small building then for the cell tower providers. Right on Fairview Avenue is visitors building, concessions, and restrooms. In this, because of the 8-lane track, this looks at visitor bleachers being portable bleachers, and during field events, not track and field, but events that are on the field, football and soccer, for instance, they would actually be sitting on the track. During a track event, they would have to be pushed off either onto the field or in some other location to make the track available for runners. So in this case, the Banana Building becomes that transition between the low field, the turf field, and the upper field, helping with that change of grade. We know one of the things we have to solve eventually is ADA accessibility from the low field to the high field. So that building is going to help do that. In this option, we have moved soft baseball to the southwest in terms of home plate location, a southwest location. And this option contemplates bringing softball on site. Again, a little bit of foreshadowing of what's to come. The committee really felt like, and you're going to see an option that shows tennis as well. The committee felt like tennis and softball are very well handled on their current sites, and ultimately not a recommendation to bring them on this site, but very much like the idea of baseball in this location. And so that is moving forward as options. This, again, is increasing home plate to backstop to 40 feet. That first base foul line has some compromise as a result. And so a higher fence out there in right center field, and a netting now to catch or prevent foul balls from going out into North Star Avenue or even into a neighbor's front yard. And so that kind of captures the overall theme. One of the things we're doing here also is providing some parking off of North Star. You're seeing parking counts in the upper right-hand corner, so either pluses or minus off of existing. In this case, we're adding about 9 spaces to the site. We keep hanging on to some existing parking on the south end of the site across from the high school, but adding some off of North Star. So that is option 2B. This is a 1-story building, and as a result, there's some more new construction at ground level. Option 3 now is bringing that north parcel where Huntington Bank and small restaurant is located right off of West 5th, bringing that into play. Slight rearrangement of the play fields. Things to the south side of the site are not dissimilar, although now we've taken over the parking, sort of a new ceremonial plaza, new home bleachers, a new home concessions, some new expanded lockers, retaining wall transition from lower field to upper field. What this does is puts back to back the softball field and the baseball field. And based on my prior comment about the committee's feeling that softball is fine where it is, this option is actually now moving forward. One of the things that you will note at the end of the presentation when we talk about some of the themes that came out of workshop 2, the committee really felt like any option that included the north currently not owned parcels along 5th should either be able to be there or not be there. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more in the future. And in this case, if baseball was straddling that new parcel and property that you own, you can't do this option without obtaining that parcel, and the committee felt like that probably wasn't the wisest direction to move forward with. So that's option 3. Let's look at 4. Now you're seeing South half of the field is essentially very similar, if not same, as option 3. What's happening north of that, though, is different. Baseball has now slid down into probably, not probably, a much more preferred location by the committee in that north those north parcels, the bank and the restaurant, are taken over by tennis. And like softball, as I mentioned, the committee felt like tennis is very well handled currently on Park District site, and didn't feel like it was really the bang for what it was likely to cost to make it happen here. The benefit of doing it here is you can add a 5th court, which makes it, from a competition standpoint, a bit more desirable. Again, the committee felt like its current location was very suitable. And that's really the last of the options. What we then did was some small group work. We had the committee broken into 4 teams: yellow, blue, green, and red. They all developed, we had some what we call paper dog cutouts, some acetates that they could use to overlay a blank site plan and think about and play with, what if we do baseball here or softball there, or, and interestingly enough, between all 4 groups, a common set of themes evolved. And we've got those captured here for you on this one. So everybody felt, every one of those teams felt it was important to replace the home bleachers, the existing concrete bleachers, and maximize the use of those with some type of storage below. Not to let that space below the bleachers go wasted. Again, tight site. The new buildings with shared facilities should be located north and south of the track. South of the track, the conversation was at the sort of the entry gate to put concessions and toilet rooms and ticketing there, and create more of a formal entry. Folks could come in one spot, either split off and go to visitor side or home side. I mentioned already the 6-lane track. Really was not a strong desire, or really a desire at all, to have an 8-lane track. Felt like 6-lane really accommodated the needs for today. More importantly, I should note, to get a really high-quality track surface, the committee felt like that was more important than an 8-lane track. So what the committee is basically saying is we'd rather have a better wear surface, buy a quality track that's going to serve us for more years than get a bigger track. Keeping the visitor bleachers separate from the home bleachers. There was an option that brought the visitor bleachers to the home side. The committee really felt like good crowd control would keep that separate. The upper fields. I actually didn't mention this in the presentation of the schemes, but a couple of those schemes suggested synthetic turf on those upper fields. The committee really felt like that was a very good idea to increase the playability of those fields. So taking them offline if you get a rainstorm and they're a little bit soggy, and knowing the intensity of use, to have a surface there like your current synthetic turf inside the track, to increase the playability with synthetic turf. Consider acquiring the adjacent parcels for a field house or a multi-purpose building. And so we don't have that to show you this evening, because we didn't have, this really is something that emerged through the workshop. So you'll see some thoughts on this the next time. Don't have that for you tonight, but field house is sort of a couple of more gyms and that type of thing that might be there. It's not, would help with practices and so forth, might be a community asset. Tennis and softball should remain where they are. You need to pay attention to security. Parking, set sort of a goal of not reducing the current number of parking spaces, and increase the parking if we can. Look at the sort of realignment of North Star and the 3rd Street intersection. As Oakland comes across 3rd and becomes North Star, you know that those are misaligned right now, so look at options where to bring some alignment. At the new ceremonial entry off of 3rd across from the high school provides a meaningful sort of drop-off area. Currently that is a little bit scattershot in terms of how it happens. There's a lot of pressure on that corner. the North Star 3rd Street corner right now, from students showing up on bikes, parents walking, people walking, crossing streets, cars dropping people off. There's a lot that happens right now, right there. So providing a little bit more organization around that was good. Baseball stays on site. That desired, when I say southwest orientation, or we say southwest, that means home plate is southwest. So southwest to center field will be going from a southwest corner to a northeast corner, which is really the most desirable orientation for baseball. So those are really the themes that came through. And again, really great consistency between all 4 groups in terms of the thinking behind what they saw relative to those options that were presented to them.
So we just wanted to wrap up with the same slide, and we know there might want to be some discussion on our next update, which ideally would like to occur prior to the final workshop so that we can share with you the refined options and the cost associated with that. So if that's something you want to figure out offline, the week of July 11th is what we were targeting, just so that we have time to cost out those options, because there's time involved in that. So the final board approval will occur at your September meeting, we hope. That would allow us time to, again, refine after that workshop and get you a final deliverable document and present it. We're open for questions or any comments that you have.
Great, well, thanks all 3 of you. Very good overview, and I picked up more from this time through having seen it before at the community meeting, but it's helpful to absorb that. Let's ask if there are any of the board members that have questions.
Do not. Like Eric, I got to see the presentation once prior, so I feel like I'm pretty good.
No, this time.
Yeah, I don't have any specific questions right now. I appreciate you going through and the process with the community, and I'll look forward to hearing what the committee comes up with.
I plan to be there on July 19th for the big meeting during the day, so looking forward to that.
So that does get us to an important point. Ideally, we would like to schedule a special meeting. And since we have Steve and Amy on the line and 4 of the 5 board members, the week of July 11th, if possible. And it would be a special meeting for the sole purpose of Perkins and Will giving us a master plan update, pricing updates, et cetera, to the board. I didn't know, so I wouldn't envision it would be, I mean, we may have some hires on that agenda or something random like that, but pretty much a linear agenda item of that, K-12 athletics master planning. I didn't know whether there might be a time that would work on that week for everyone on the 11th, and that you're not, okay.
Not for me, but I'm just one board member.
The same. I'm out of town that whole week also.
Okay. So the meeting's on the 19th. I mean, we could then consider doing the 18th?
That's fine with me.
I won't be there as long as Katie's there. We would be okay. I'm sorry, Miss Matney's there. Don't we have to have 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be in it.
If there's going to be more, if it's not just a presentation, if it actually had to have action, then yes.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no.
And this would be just a presentation.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
To
there
give
were action
feedback and update.
I feel like because I am going to be there on the 19th, that it would be better to plan around the other board members than me. But if it's like something where we need 3 members, then yeah, the 18th works for me. But
The 18th works for me. That's the Monday.
Yes.
Kevin, would you be back by then?
Yes.
Okay, and we need to check with Katie.
Okay.
Okay.
Like I will be in the country, maybe?
Okay.
Steve and Amy and team, does that work for you guys?
Yeah, we'll be in town anyway.
Okay.
We're happy to do virtual, but we will be in town for the workshop the following morning, so.
Right. Great.
happy to meet in person as well.
Okay. Okay,
Let's plan on that then.
okay. We'll take it from there and I'll coordinate with Katie to determine, and then next steps. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for the update.
Yes, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you all.
Is it as hot in
Great night.
Chicago?
And it-
Is it as hot in Chicago?
Yes.
Okay.
97
Yes.
right now.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
Pretty similar.
same, here.
all right.
Yeah.
Stay
Well,
cool.
stay cool.
Thank you.
There's the
Thanks,
mind meld.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye all.
Night.
Bye.
Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda is the building and department reports. And after that, the superintendent's report. I'll hand it over to Andy.
Couple highlights. First and foremost, Larson Middle School hosted Camp Invention during the week of June 6th through June 10th. Always a fun-filled, celebratory learning opportunity for our kids. On May 29th, I know all of the board was present. 100% of our seniors graduated, so big congratulations. Boys track team finished 5th at the state meet. Colin Hodge Abib won the state championship in the long jump and 110-meter hurdles. So as an FYI, I am planning on or trying to coordinate potentially him coming to our August board meeting to be recognized along with some of these other members. But additionally, Connor McCormick finished 4th in the pole vault and 6th in the 300-meter hurdles. Madeline Palmiciano, some of you recognize that name, I'm sure, finished 8th in the girls' 3,200-meter run. Maddie was also named Most Valuable Runner of the Year in the MSL Ohio Division. Owen Billiter was named MSL Ohio Division Most Valuable Field Event Student Athlete. So very exciting and successful track season for our Bobcats. One of the things I think is really great is that Brian Stork meets with every incoming freshman family to plan their schedule. And so he's in the process of beginning that. And I think it's just a really great example of personalization and a very tangible example of our mission to maximize and personalize every student's learning. The district hosted a kindergarten annex open house on Saturday, May 21st. I unfortunately was out of town. I'm told we had around 30 participants. And subsequent to that building has been leveled. And so if you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing. So it's an exciting example of progress. And I know also there's some emotional attachment to that physical building, but it was great to see the folks that were able to attend that. Our spring-summer 2022 district newsletter is getting close to dropping. So special thanks to Hilly Head for all her coordination of work on that.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions or comments from the board? I would just ask, in reading over the reports again, the full reports, to make sure you spell out acronyms.
Definitely. Thank you.
Continued,
Good feedback.
yeah, sticking point there. We have a construction progress update, and I see Jay in the back of the room.
Yes, happy birthday, Jay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Last year in the 30s.
Enjoy
Most
it.
of it. Yeah.
I feel so bad for
You might be the youngest person in the room.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah. All right.
No. In case you're wondering.
Can I take that back? What
What do you got for us, Jay?
more excellent progress. I know that, starting with the exterior, Andy mentioned the annex buildings come down right on schedule and critically important for the start of August school year. And so that's step one. We're going to remove the foundations. We're going to start grading. We're going to start making way for the Fairview parking lot extension. That's going to happen this summer, and we're lined up and ready to go for that. Also, out front on 3rd, you'll have seen the grading to start for the ADA for the ADA sidewalks, which was critically important as well to bringing this school up to code and to be inclusive for everyone as well. On the interior side, HVAC equipment has started up. We said Memorial Day was our target milestone for that, and I know they don't mean anything to you. RTUs, rooftop units 10 and 11, those serve the gym area. Those were step one of, a dozen rooftop units, and that's because the gym needs to be acclimated for your new wood floor. So good team, planning ahead, thinking about the right way to do it with quality control and quality assurance. So that has happened, and we're underway there. We started flooring on the second floor as well. So around the classroom wings on the east side, you'll see flooring start to go. Appreciate the mock-up that we did all those months ago to establish our expectations for those, and so we're holding that as our benchmark and what we're gonna deliver for those as well. Let's see here. The gym ceilings are painted, so we're working our way top down. Next will be the scoreboards that'll come in, and then we'll start removing the flooring and start putting the new flooring back in July. The auditorium, the ADA ramps for the auditorium are framed, and so by the time we meet again, those will be poured, and those will be, we're going to start getting into the finishes of the auditorium. I know it's kind of coming up to the rest of the project's progress, but we're doing really well there. What you can expect as well is ceiling tile to be dropped. So these should have happened by now. They haven't, but all of those things considered, casework, we had a month delay on casework due to supply chain disruption. All of that considered, we're trending a few weeks, I would say, ahead of schedule right now. And so the goal for that, when you look at the overall project.
Can you say that again?
No. Yeah, we're trending a few weeks ahead of schedule. Absolutely. Love it when we have the opportunity to bring good news. And what you do with situations like that is it's 120,000 square foot building. We try to make it smaller by completing and knocking out certain areas so that we kind of make it more smaller, manageable as we work our way out of the building. And we can talk in the future about furniture opportunities and things like that as long as we continue to trend in the right direction. So all in all, a good report and making great progress, and we could plan on continuing to do that.
Do you care if I ask just a couple quick questions?
Please go ahead.
I haven't been over, usually I'm there every week, and I haven't been over there in probably 3. I'm just curious, a couple more specific questions about the first floor.
Sure.
From a drywall standpoint, would you say, how far off are we being totally complete with drywall being hung on the first floor?
On the first floor, we're close. So we're also working our way north to south.
Yeah.
So I would say we're substantially complete all the way back to the multipurpose area, which is kind of the high school commons, we'll say, where the high school servery is at. Very close there. What's left to do is the corridor leading up to the gym.
Got it.
And we're even maybe some of the music areas.
Right.
But we're close there as well. Those are being hung as well.
Grids on the first floor?
Grids on the first floor is a little bit trending behind. We should have started those already. The north area, the administrative area has been painted for a few weeks now, and so there's reasons behind it. We've got to get our ductwork fabrication up to speed, and we're working hard at doing that. So.
One more question on the. I know you're
by next month the grid will have started.
And I know you're doing floor leveling started on the second floor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious. I know this is kind of detail specific, but
Sure.
I'm curious because I haven't been over there in forever. Where are you on the second floor in terms of the floor leveling of the classrooms and hallways?
Right, so it's the classrooms is the focus. The hallways haven't started. It's a process. There's a grind process associated with that leveling, and the art room is a polished concrete like the middle school art room was, if you remember that polished concrete look. That did start. So that,
nice.
You'll see the big grind. If we were to take a walk next week, you'll see the big grinders up there. So they're going to start on this, what we'll call the southeast corner, and work that east corridor north is where the leveling will start.
Awesome.
Jay, I know it's still 6 months or so to the end.
Mhm.
I know when we did the middle school here, there were a few items that weren't ready at opening because of the backlog with the ordering. I think there were some lockers and maybe
Yep.
drinking fountain or something like that.
Yep.
Are you anticipating anything like that for the high school as well?
The only, the only thing that I would anticipate happening with that there's two items. Unfortunately, it's the lockers again. There's a small amount of lockers on the high school, and we, timing as it is, we did just get their colors approved. We had to resubmit because the manufacturer unfortunately went out of business, and so we needed to find an or equal product. And we've done that and have those approved. And so right now, if we release those today, with the lead times that they will show up in November. So they could potentially be on time, but with what we experienced for the first phase, I just don't know that that's the case. Also, I failed to mention that we'll start next week the outdoor learning area on the Fairview and Third parking lot. So we'll start removing the asphalt and start to grade and prepare for that. There's some really cool decorative benches that MKSK designed. Those site furnishings have a really long lead time as well. So nothing that will hold up occupancy, thankfully, but there may be some lingering furnishings, tables, chairs, trash receptacles, or bench. Those decorative bench tops may linger a little bit behind as well. But that's all I can think of at the moment. I mean, the good thing about it, and what, Concord Addis team and you've all been really good about doing, was allowing subcontractors to bill ahead so that they could purchase and procure those materials. So all of our light fixtures that a lot of projects are struggling with are here, or they're in their warehouses, other things like that. And then, although the casework's behind, it's supposedly July 15th is when it'll be here. So I don't see that being an issue either.
This is maybe more for Andy and building leadership than you, but I was just thinking about it when you were talking about site work that's being done. I'm sure you guys are probably already on top of this, but about getting into the school for the kids and having that figured out both for the start of the school year and then for post winter break, because things outside are changing so much, and it's almost July, amazingly, maybe before long.
Yeah, drop off and pick
Yeah.
up and entry
Right.
and exit.
Which is always crazy. but
Traffic
then,
flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making sure everybody in the community is well aware of how
Yeah.
that's supposed to work.
And usually, Jay, like you, me, Colleen, the chief of police, heck, the mayor attended last time, myself, Chris Dice, Sean Hinkle, do a walkthrough, which usually helps.
Yep.
So I'll send the email for that.
Yeah, and that's a great suggestion.
It is.
Internally, what we've started to do was, the Edison building is within 20 feet of the front here, and so when that building coming down safely, because you'll be occupied in school. So doing that safely, doing that, while school's not in session is a plan that's already in place and being worked on, which I won't go into details of the way the structure runs, whether it runs north and south or east and west, but those are the kinds of things that we have evaluated of that building to make sure that it comes down. And so there might be a small time in which that the entrance to the Larson Middle School behind me will be unavailable, but we're going to plan it around school at a minimum. But school, the kids and knowing where to go is a great point.
Good news, it looks like they're finally making some progress on the Brexton sidewalks.
Yeah.
So,
One day.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, it happened the day that we started to try to haul material out of that area.
Of course.
Yeah, so we got it worked out.
Well, I know that there was, some emotional attachment, some in the community to the kindergarten building, but having it gone when I walk by, that really opened it up visually. I mean, and got a sense of like, wait till this is gone, you know, what's in front of us. You're really starting to see that come to fruition.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Jay.
Yeah, you're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you.
Happy
To the team
belated.
for the progress.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
So are you still in your 30s?
I'm still in my 30s.
No, me neither.
So, Emily, I'm not sure how much more we have to add from the core team.
I can't think of anything offhand right now.
I think the really good news is that, you know, the budget implication items that kept cropping up when they started getting into the walls and everything, and it seemed like every week there was more bad news, that has really slowed down.
Yeah. Well, I guess one thing that we've talked about a little bit more recently is the site plan, the playground and playground equipment, which is sort of, you know, which is really exciting to see the drawings, but anyway, moving to the next phase.
There is consideration, and then we're kind of getting more information on, there's, within what was budgeted, so the team did a really good job of taking the budget, which included the extra money, you know, from the Education Foundation, to get some really cool new equipment. And it was replacing really the older equipment. But there's some consideration for keeping some of the older equipment, but moving it to a new location, which there's some concerns about as well, and so we're kind of in the midst of gathering information on that. Don't have a
Still all in
recommendation.
consideration, just because, I mean, unsurprisingly these days, it's very, very expensive to buy
Very
playground
expensive.
equipment, very expensive.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think we actually have anything to approve with that. So moving on to number 9, board policy and procedure. Do we have a report?
Yeah, we had a short policy meeting, I believe it was last week. Our major policy updates usually come over the summer. So our first board meeting of the new academic year will be where we have lots of things to consider. There's a few things for the first read today related to, one that popped up is officially accepting Juneteenth. Now, this is a first read, so for this year's Juneteenth, we have a separate item on the agenda. But moving forward, because this is a first read, if we approve it in the future, that'll become embedded within one of the recognized holidays. Mostly it's procedural, legal footnotes, not a whole lot to report on, honestly.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, that does bring us to the recommendation for approval. You already teed it up here, but this would be an action item for this month. So the very upcoming next Monday would be to recognize that as a holiday for the staff who normally would be working in the summer. So it affects a much smaller group than the normal during the school year. So I would entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassmuth?
Aye.
Is there anything else to say about the policies for the first reading? All right, we have the item 10, curriculum and instruction, including the Teaching and Learning Committee report.
We met again. This was, I think it was about a week ago again.
Yeah.
And we continued discussion of House Bill 616 and its effects. We talked about the launch that's going to be taking place August 9th. And Andy might be able to provide more detail on that. And then we discussed Peter Kahn is a storyteller, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be used, he's contracting with the board to provide his services for the schools.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the main things that we talked about.
It was like, I think we did talk a little bit about House Bill 99, but we're going to talk about that later on, I think, because it's more we talked a lot about that. There's a possible introduction of different classes, one of them being self-defense from the Ohio General Assembly. But I was like, yeah, it's kind of the crux of what's going on right now. Did we want to talk about House Bill 616 now, or should that
Why don't
come
we
later?
keep that to the end
Okay.
and get through the other items, but absolutely get back to it. We'll move on to business and finance. I'll hand it over to Beth.
Okay.
The award-winning Beth Collier.
So I have a brief.
8 years running,
report to-
award-winning Beth Collier.
A brief report to share with you, financial results through the end of May. We're right on track with where we expect to be coming into the kind of winding down to the end of our fiscal year. So not a whole lot changed. Our taxes, our Grandview Yard money had been fully received prior to this month. Our state funding is at about 94%, so right on track. And interest for the month was just over $15,000. Our general fund expenditure budget, so being 11 months in, we're about, the fiscal year-to-date budget is about 91.7%, and we're at about 1.5% under. Our actual expenditures are just under that, so that's good. That's where we like to be. Investments to maturity, the yield is about 1.25%, so we're seeing that, interest rates creeping up just a little. Permanent Improvement Fund, there's not a whole lot new here to share. One addition that you'll see at the very bottom under current needs is emergency power to our sump and kitchen coolers, as well as mixing valves for our kitchen. So those couple things together, about $6,400. Construction fund, our interest this month was about $10,000. We have interest for the project to date of about $1.76 million. So just as a reminder, our budget was about $1.8 million. We're going to be just a little bit over that, so I expect to be maybe about $1.82 million or so. So we'll be just a little ahead of that $1.8 million in the end. Soft costs, about 73.8%. This is the first time this month I thought it was interesting that construction costs have gone around the soft costs. So 76% spent, and our fund balance is down to just over 15 million. So see that winding down. A couple other highlights I wanted to share. So our food service fund has a positive balance as of the end of May of $122,000. So the implications of this are that we will not need a transfer from our general fund. So we had budgeted $75,000. That's a typical year of what we subsidize the food service program, and there will be no transfer needed this year. So that's great news. That is a direct result of the federal subsidy for free lunch, free breakfast for all students. So financially, that was a win for us. Kids Club fund balance is up to $54,000. So that is recovering from that kind of hitting the bottom of the barrel at about 25,000 or so coming out of COVID. So we are recovering some in that regard too. So that's great news. And the Finance Committee does kind of monitor that as well. I provide an update each month. Nothing new here other than the interest update in terms of facility sources of revenue. So I'll take any questions if you have them.
I forget, has there been a decision on the federal government with that school food?
So there has not, as of yet. I've talked to Kyle a couple times in the last few weeks about that, and I know there was a bill at the federal level that I think some legislators were trying to get that put into kind of at the the 11th hour, and I don't think it has occurred as of yet.
So as of now, we will not expect that to continue.
Correct. We do not expect that subsidy to continue, the free lunches and free breakfast for next year. That's correct.
Right.
Unless something happens between now and
That's another communication thing to families, because I think,
That's a good
people
idea.
got
That's a
used to
really
over
good
the past 2 years not having to worry about their you know, their accounts and
Mm-hmm.
what their kids owed.
Good point.
Good suggestion.
Good point.
Is there anything else from the finance committee to add to?
We had, so we were scheduled to meet Monday, actually. We meet on the third Monday of each month, so that would have been Monday, the 20th. And so the team just talked in the last few days about canceling that meeting because of the federal holiday that was going to be recognized. And so.
I forget,
We had met on
did we
like,
meet after our last board meeting?
we did the 13th or the 16th, I
It was
believe
the 16th was our last meeting, May 16th.
we did, and it was, I'm like, we talked about the AEP project a little bit, Kids Club, but there was,
Updated the 5-year forecast after the
updated the 5-year,
negotiation.
but it was not,
Oh, okay, so we did meet.
it was like a lot of the things you covered tonight. I don't have anything
Yeah.
to add.
Yeah.
No, I think, I mean, right, the Kids Club thing was what I'm looking at our agenda now. The updated 5-year forecast based on the negotiations and then construction budget and the AEP substation, so. I think which there's really no update on the AEP substation at this point. I mean,
It'll work out.
it seems like it's going to happen and as expected, but it's still several years away, so.
I think there are quite a few items here. Why don't we move in second, and then we can get into some discussion. Do I have a motion for 11C, 1 through 9, and 12 through 16?
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Maybe just give an opportunity for Andy and Beth, if you give us a brief overview from the other contract, non-teaching contract.
Sure. Yeah, so we have a tentative agreement that is presented to the board for consideration. The pay raises are very commensurate with identical to what the teachers were. It was, that group of folks do a tremendous job supporting our staff and our students. And in COVID environment, our ability to recruit, attract, and retain in those specific areas has become more challenging, and because that environment is more competitive than less. And so, I feel good about, from my perspective, the raises that they're getting, although they're the same as the teachers, which is pretty typical. I don't think that our district has faced many of the challenges that larger districts have, in particular in the area of bus drivers, and custodians for that matter, and paras and subs. While we did feel it, we didn't feel it as much. This contract will help us remain competitive. I think also some of the other changes were similar in like to the changes that we made to the teachers. So an example of that would be the personal days. So historically, they've had 3 teachers. Now, similar in like, they'll be able to carry over 2, can only use 3 consecutive, can never carry over or have more than 5. There's an example of a change that they'll now realize, similar like to what we made to the teachers. I think overall, in a nutshell, it was fair. My sense is they felt like they got some things and we felt like we got some things. I would share with you perhaps one of the changes that we've made in the 8 years I've been here. Initially, there was a 3-year or 3-month period, and then it rolled into a continuing contract after 3 months. And through negotiations, the previous 2 times, we've moved that to a 2-year period. But that was one of the things that they wanted to roll back. We didn't. It's staying 2 years as a probationary period. As I reflect on negotiations, I mean, overall, it was generally very amicable. But that was maybe an issue that was perhaps, we agreed to disagree, I think, maybe. And we kept it the same. But I think there was only one no vote among their entire bargaining unit. So I think that speaks to overall a feeling of, they feel valued. And I wanted them to feel valued because they provide a really valuable service to our organization.
So, Mr. Bodie, two items that I wanted to highlight. Item number 12 is a contract for the survey of the athletic field in conjunction with the master planning process. That fee was already built into the Perkins and Will contract as part of reimbursables, and so that is not anything additional to what we had already planned. That contract initially was going to be kind of subcontracted by them, and then for a couple different reasons, we kind of changed that, and so we're contracting directly with OHM for that, but that fee was part of the reimbursables for Perkins and Will. And then number 14, property value settlement agreement. So House Bill 126 goes into effect next month, so that's the bill that drastically limits our ability to file property value appeals. In the meantime, we have some pending appeals, and this is a resolution with a property owner to settle that case with direct payments for 2 tax years. So that's a win for us. This month will be the last month so this will be the last direct payment agreement that we'll be permitted by law to enter into. So that's a win for us financially, and we'll drop our appeal in that case.
I was going to ask for item number 6, the athletic admissions. Is there any change?
So those match the what the MSL League sets the prices, and I don't know for sure. I'll follow up on that and send you guys an email to let you know. I think that price went up $1 this year. I'll double check that to be sure though. But the $7, $5, those are set by MSL leagues, so we have to charge whatever the MSL sets as those ticket prices. And just one thing to point out too, all of it, whether you're a student or an adult, it's $7 for high school events. So there's not different pricing for students and adults anymore. And that, again, that's a league decision.
So I recall the discussion on changing, I think just for the football team, the league.
Oh,
So how does that affect prices? Like, is that, like, if you got a pass for MSL, does that include football? Or what's?
So the season passes are issued by so they're passes for our home games, so they're Bobcat passes. Mm-hmm. So if you buy a season pass, that money goes into our athletic fund, and you get into every event here, regardless of what league it is. So those are not MSL passes; those are Grandview Heights passes.
Okay. So we follow their pricing guidelines, but it really is just for us.
The passes, I don't believe are MSL set. I believe the pass fees we set as a district.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'll confirm that and follow up with you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any other questions or concerns? It's been moved and seconded. Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gusset?
Aye.
And Ms. Westman?
Aye.
We have some personnel actions in item 12. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
There are actually 31 separate items. That's a lot. Moved and seconded. Any specific ones? We already called out Brett's
Can I make a
special
couple comments?
Please.
For number 4, certified resignations, I wanted to specifically thank these 3 staff members for their service. Yeah, Eric Pickering has been with the district for a long time as a school psych. And he's been having some, so he's resigned, and we'll miss him. That position is posted for full-time school psych. As part of this also, we had kind of parlayed Abby Keller as a .5 Grandview Heights employee and a .5 ESC employee. On this board agenda, we're making her a 1.0 Grandview Heights employee. No additional FTEs, but just semantics. Additionally, Katie McIntyre, who's been a fifth grade IS, is moving to as a fourth grade general ed teacher. That fifth grade IS position also is posted now. Congratulations to Alexandra McCann and Jennifer Olis. I know we had a parent involved in that search, and we're excited to bring her on board to replace Chris Herman, who is going to Miami University. Love and honor. And then also number 10, administrative contracts. I was able to spend the day with our administrative team today, including Matt Wyan, and he's going to be fantastic. I was really impressed with his disposition, his presence, his reflective growth-mindedness, his intellect and analysis, his charisma. I'm excited about him. So I wanted to mention those.
Any other questions or comments? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wasmuth?
Aye.
And we have item 13, co-curricular activities and extracurricular. We have items for approval, field trips and volunteers, items 1 through 5. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I guess the only question I had on this was, of the field trips, some were paid by family, and the first one for the basketball team had partly to be paid from the boys' basketball activity account. Is that an account that's funded by fundraising activities for the boys' basketball team?
Yes.
So it's not like a
It's
General fund
entirely a
subsidy.
fundraising
Gotcha.
account that the boys' basketball team raises. Yes, that's correct.
Makes sense then. Any other questions or comments? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wasmuth?
Aye.
We have recommendations for approval for meeting dates. So the first one would be for July.
So
That's when we did.
so we just hashed that out earlier, for I believe it was July 18th.
Were we gonna wait and see if, before we said it, and were we
Yeah,
gonna
with
wait and see
Katie.
about Katie?
But we tentatively, maybe it's a
Yeah.
better way to say it, thank you, Emily, a date settled for Perkins and Will unilateral agenda item on July 18th. The one caveat, I will say, unknown to us now, so two-fold, two-part point here I want to make to the board. Currently, there's a meeting scheduled for June 30th. There will be, the goal will be to have our hiring done and on that agenda, all stop. In the event that, A, we're not able to complete the hiring process to have it on the June 30th agenda, or there is something unforeseen between either now and June 30th, or after June 30th, but before July 10th. July 10th being the date where a currently employed staff member, superintendent, doesn't have to let him out of the contract. There may be a long-winded explanation to say there may be a need to have a special meeting with 3 board members in or around July 9th. In the event that we're not able to get all of our needed hires, in particular, I'm talking about teachers here, before July 10th. I'm I'm hopeful and even optimistic that we'll be able to get all this done by June 30th, but you just never know.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep, just let us know.
Keep in mind, it sounds like at least 3 board members will be out of town starting July 9th, so.
That's good.
Do what you
Aim for
want.
the 8th.
Okay, that's good to
Well,
know.
the 9th is a Sunday, I think, isn't it?
The
Isn't it
9th is a
10th?
Saturday.
So what,
Saturday.
so Friday the 8th?
8th, yeah.
That's good to know. So July 8th, there's 3 of you in town?
No, 3 that are not in
I'd be in town on the 8th. I leave
That's
the
still,
9th.
I'd be here.
Would you be here on the 9th, just in case? Or, I'm sorry.
No, July, well, hold on a second here. July 8th, I think.
I don't think so.
You will not be?
I don't think so.
Well, Katie's the question then. Again, two-part question for Katie. Okay.
And then the August one, that was my issue, that I will be not here traveling during this,
August 10th?
yeah, the regularly scheduled one. So I'm trying to remember, Haley, where we,
The 17th?
yeah, did we look?
Yeah, I was going to ask about, does the 17th work?
The
Because I think
17th.
she asked the 3rd and the 24th, but I don't think we offered the 17th as an
I
alternative.
will not be here.
17th is the first day of school,
You won't be
too.
here for the 17th either? Oh, okay, okay.
15th is first day of school.
15th? I thought-
Okay.
Never
It was
mind.
the 17th.
So
Never
what
mind.
about the 24th?
Yeah. that
That's
works for me.
fine,
The 3rd
yeah.
does not work for me, but the 24th does.
That's the when.
That's
yeah,
Wednesday-
yes, yes,
Wednesday
I would
the
be- I would
24th?
do that, yeah.
I do believe there was at least one board member who said they couldn't be there that,
Correct.
that day.
I think it
24th?
must have been
Yeah,
Katie.
it
No,
must
the
have been.
24th.
I can be there.
Yeah, I can be there.
I can be there.
Can
Yeah,
you
so
be
it
there?
must be
I can
Katie.
be there
Yeah.
the
All right,
24th.
it's- well,
August 24th.
Let's plan on that then.
Dot, can you be there?
There's no meeting without Dot.
There's no meeting.
I think we'll just make it the 24th.
Yeah, so, there's 3
'Cause there's
dates
no
now we
date that
gotta ask
everybody-
Katie about. But
Right.
let's ink that.
So I think the other agenda items, we had 2 bills that are in various stages, and, normally I think we don't react to bills, but I think these were specific ones, not only high profile, but specifically, I feel, affecting the kind of rights and responsibilities of the board, of what the General Assembly would be limiting us, and, that we may have a reaction to. So I know we've had some discussion on the 616, the Don't Say Gay bill, and then I don't believe that we've, as a board, yet talked about the gun bill, the 99.
Wow.
But we've had some separate conversations individually, and I think in committee, that they were discussed. So I would like an opportunity now to have a discussion among the board members. I think it's important to have this in public. These are, items that have come up, that people have been asking Andy about, that we've had some contact, and I think it's only fair that we as a board, who are meeting here in public, bring up and have a discussion around those. So maybe I'd start with Kevin and Molly. I know that the 2 of you have, and maybe just because we took this up earlier, maybe start with the 616 and have a discussion on that one first.
That's fine.
Sure, we spoke as a teaching and learning committee about House Bill 616, and basically just renounced the idea of trying to limit a board's control over picking curriculum that educational experts see best fit for students. So, and I most certainly agree with that, denouncing that, yeah.
And I think particularly what was a driver for me is that it's not just a bill that says, here's an opinion, but it has some real consequences to it, both for individual teachers, which is, significant enough, and a bill that is rather vaguely worded, and so it's hard to know where's the line of where a teacher might cross and be in trouble with the law, but also, I think, consequences for funding.
We could lose state funding depending upon the severity of the consequence, and the thing that goes along with that is that there's possibilities for teachers to lose their licenses depending upon the severity of the consequences, us to lose our state funding depending upon that. And then it's also, what's hard, a multitude of things that are hard, is the bill itself has vague language on what is considered racist, what is, because it's not only don't say gay, it is also, you can't talk about divisive topics. So it's both. This was a lot of things from House Bill 327, which was, paraphrasing, anti-critical race theory. So you can't talk about racism. You can't talk about anything divisiveness. You can't talk about these things, but it doesn't say what you can talk about. It outlines specific texts that you are not allowed to teach, which I don't think we do. But there's a whole lot of vagueness, but it's also very politically polarizing. And then the bill itself is not very apt in its description, which to me is very problematic, because if a student says, I read the 1619 project, if the teacher does anything, like what? Like but then we're talking about like someone's livelihood and a whole lot. So it's vague in probably the worst way possible with being punitive. So if we as a district choose to move forward and say, as leadership, we denounce, how do we do that?
So I do know that there was a draft letter that I believe Kevin shared with the board. An option for the board's consideration would be that letter is sent from the board, and I'm myself as superintendent, or just the board. I'm fine. I would like to maybe put my name on it as well. Send it to the staff, and then certainly send it to the myriad of state representatives that service Marble Cliff and Grandview, was my thought.
I was gonna say, you also send it to the sponsor and to the chair of the committees.
Correct. Yeah.
Leadership, the whole.
Yes, that grouping of folks.
Do we need to take a motion, and this is just transparency, do we need to take a motion, or just we as a board, we've talked about it, we've denounced it, this is our letter, can I sign my name on it and send it out?
So this question came up when we were talking about House Bill 126 and the property value appeal process. And what our attorney recommended was that letter be officially approved by the board in a public meeting before you all sign your name to it. And that was the timing. We didn't have a meeting scheduled, which was why I could not put your name on the letter opposing that bill. So his recommendation was that any letter that the whole board signs be voted on in a public meeting.
So we would have to actually have the letter as an attachment on the agenda. Basically I'm asking, is this something that we can do today, or are you saying we have to wait till our next meeting because the letter itself needs to be a part of the board packet?
Does the letter have to, hang on.
So his recommendation was that the letter is presented
that's
at
what
the
I thought.
meeting and voted on.
I thought that's what you were saying.
I don't know that you couldn't decide tonight that you're writing a letter in opposition to a bill and be able to do it that way too.
If it were to be read, would that suffice as
A record.
a record?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
How do we, I want to make a motion. but I don't
We
know
also
what to-
do, we also do have a meeting scheduled for June 30th.
Could we add it
If
to
we
that?
need to be, I don't want to get into a place where we're accused of not following the law. And that it's just, where does the bill stand right now?
Bill's in committee, and I don't think they've.
So
had-
2 weeks is not going to make a difference in terms
Correct.
of
Yeah,
getting
we've
it
got
to.
that
That is correct.
I'd also ask, so that's good to know with the timing, and then from I know you had a draft of a letter, Kevin. Thank you again for putting that together in the committee. And then Molly, you had some additional ideas as well, that obviously didn't conflict, but, it was different wording.
It's possible.
Maybe just start with, Kevin, you put that out there, is what you had shared with the wording still what, you would consider is the best draft, or are there things that you've looked at it again and we're looking at any changes?
I would keep it as is.
We also too, so Kevin shared a draft with the Teaching and Learning Committee, and then I wrote my own version of where I stand, and that's what I had shared. We can take a stance as a school board and leadership, and then you, Eric Bodie, can write a letter. I, Molly Wasmuth, can write a letter. Emily Geppert can write a letter. Kevin Gousset can write a letter. In fact, all of us probably should. So the more things that go in to that, and I can share it with the board, and I can, if we're gonna do a board approval of the letter on the 30th, I will also share what I as an individual will be writing or could be writing. Is that, am I?
Perhaps it might be like easier as a board if we do a resolution like denouncing the bill that's more general, and then if people want to use their own wording for a letter and send a board resolution that, you know, more like official resolution denouncing it and like with bullet points why to the legislative members, and then everybody else, if they want to use different language,
That would
send their own letters, or
the more things we can say against this publicly, I'm here
Yeah.
for it. I want to be with you because I want to make sure that we are following the letter of the law and that we're doing this, dotting the Ts, crossing the I. Oh, wait, I did that wrong. Yeah, that's what I want to do this for.
I would just say, I think, 98% of this is that we all agree and it's a strong opinion, and I think we're kind of talking mechanics here,
Yeah,
which,
right.
part of that may be precedence and all that. I think, the letter that was written is excellent. I like the procedural point, and if there's no, particular timing issue, if we could get that in the packet, that would be for voting on at the end of
I
June.
don't really care whether it's the letter or I don't care. I was
And
just
then-
offering a solution.
And then when we convey that, we can also include the fact that it was officially approved. And then, as you point out, everybody's free to write their own additional documents, and there's some really, really good stuff in what you wrote, Molly, and shared.
Thank you. I also would like to reach out to, if we're gonna do this on the 30th, I would like to reach out to Bark and see if they have insights to it, and they, not insights to it, if they would like to be present at the board meeting for when we do that, if it's possible, and reach out to them, because if we as a district are taking a stance, would they also like to join us with letter writing things? And it's a little bit mechanical, but, how, get their insights, input at that meeting if possible.
It sounds good. This is all just, my own schedule is that we scheduled that as a short 15-minute
Yeah,
board meeting, and
it's
I
a special-
can't,
it's
if
gonna
it starts to get long, I can't be there.
Well,
Like
if
8:30 in the morning, I think.
If we're, that's, no, I totally, but
No, I hear it, but I'm saying that I think we'll have trouble having three board members present if it goes much past 20 to 30 minutes,
we do
or
what we
maybe
can.
15.
Just,
Yeah.
it's a simple, this is what we're doing.
Yeah,
To me-
so Bark is aware, just,
Okay.
they're more than
Well,
aware.
I'm not
I've
ask-
shared the letter with Bark.
Yeah, I'm not asking for them to
and-
speak.
And talked with them about it, face to face in addition,
Yeah, I'm
more
not,
than once.
I'm not asking like for them to speak out, but if we're doing this and this is something, would you like to be there?
Yeah.
And then afterwards, if they want to talk, what can we do? Those of us that can will stay. Like, I'm not asking for a special presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
we
their
could definitely share the
presence.
agenda
That's
with
what I'm-
them and share
That's
with
what
them
I'm
that they're,
after.
that it's
Yeah.
gonna be voted
Yeah,
on.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So I think there's nothing on that to vote on, but I think a strong sense of the group here of a plan of action. I appreciate that. Maybe move on then to the, is it House Bill or Senate Bill?
House Bill.
House Bill 99, which, as I understand, was signed.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Today or yesterday.
It was signed Monday?
Monday.
Monday, I think it was signed.
Yeah, the governor did sign it.
So that is what that does is drop the requirements for teachers to carry, or not teachers, I'm sorry, for educators to carry on school grounds from 700 hours to 24 hours. And I think the most important piece of it is that the Board of Education has to allow weapons to be on the school grounds, if I'm not mistaken.
Both before and after.
Both before and after the
The
training.
governor signing it.
Right, so if, in our policy says we do not allow weapons on school grounds, correct?
Correct.
So if we do not change our policy, no matter what the hour requirement is or is not, it does not affect us unless we were to decide to change our policy. So again, with letter writing, it's a law, so it would have to be undone. I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding as to what this law, how it plays out in real life with our community members. could we, as a board, direct Superintendent Culp to reach out to a communication that's, hey, we as a board, unless someone makes a move right now and someone seconds it and three of us support it, unless we move to change policy, this is a weapon-free zone, no matter how many hours have or have not been given. Could we have some kind of communication put forward
To staff and community.
to staff, especially community? Because there's a lot of, we're arming teachers, there's a lot of misunderstanding of
Mhm.
it, which, and don't get me wrong, I have a lot of problems with this law, but as a policy and district leader, unless we choose to, it does not affect us.
That is correct.
So I do want to, because I was a little confused by some of what I saw as the encapsulation of the bill. So, I looked it up on LSE and read the text. It's actually not that long.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of, Ohio Revised Code that they have to repeat.
There's a
but,
lot.
The actual changes. And, the part that is substantive that didn't get a whole lot of press, I don't think, was the creation of a unit for school safety, including a fairly substantial, like, multi-million-dollar budget. And part of what they are involved with would be training for if teachers were going to, or not just teachers, but, anyone with the school to get training. But it looked like it was a wider mission for them. That would include expertise, for instance, on emergency procedures, expertise on building, if you wanted to do something to have greater security for your building, which, we've thought a lot about with our new buildings here, but, anyway, that there'd be, some wider things available for school security. And so what I take from that is, number one, I think all of us would say school safety is a huge concern. And I think if there's anything that does come out of that unit as follow-up here that would be useful for us, we ought to take advantage of it. So I didn't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater here and just say, I'm opposed to everything on the bill, because there might be some good things that would be useful for us to come out of it. So, if I were to make maybe 2 points about, as reaction to the bill, one would be, let's see if we can follow up and, get whatever information we can on what might come out that we could use for school safety from this unit. But the second thing would be that we are not interested in changing our policy to allow any staff members to have guns in the building.
Because I believe it's not teachers, it's any staff members, so educators, superintendents, custodians, bus drivers, anyone involved, secretaries. No, it's a good point, because I'm mixing them up, so help me out here. I believe there was, because I was like, there's the federal, one of them had money for mental health. I think that's federal. I have to look.
I think part of HB 99 did include monies for mental health as well.
Right, and there's that stuff, and there's so, you're right. There are some there is a silver lining in House Bill 99, but there's so much that's like, makes my skin crawl that I'm like, I would throw the baby out with the bathwater if it were me, because I'm like, there's so many things. But let's see if there is anything redeeming. Do we need to, I think that personally, I think this should come from, because there is no policy change.
Yeah,
This should come from Superintendent Culp, to I don't know if it's a board that, just a reaffirmation of this is our policy, this has been in the news, the board is not making
Yeah,
a
it seems
change.
kind of weird to, vote on something to say we aren't changing anything. I think maybe what we could say is make sure that we have the minutes reflect the fact that we considered the opportunity to make a change, and the board, no one on the board made any such motion, and we have decided as a board to continue with our policy of not
Rather,
allowing.
would that be a special communication from him or just?
Yeah, I have something drafted,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, no, so
already.
not- But yeah, the point, I think right now it's a public discussion by the board where, I mean, I don't know that we've all explicitly said it, but, you know, if anyone disagrees, but I know no one here does, that, you know, we aren't supportive of presently of allowing teachers or staff members to carry weapons in the building.
Yeah,
We
I think-
continue with our same policy.
And that's what I'm getting questioned
Yeah.
about by staff and by community members. And that is a component of the bill. I agree with Eric. And interestingly, I was struck by Governor DeWine's press conference because he spent a good deal of time talking about if he were a board member, he would not support empowering a staff member to carry a weapon and wouldn't vote to change the policy, which I found interesting.
The bill?
But he did, like you said, attach additional monies for mental health and training for school safety. So what that looks like and how that unpacks and unfolds, I think
Maybe
is something we
quite a
definitely,
while
it's something
before
we
we really
definitely
find
want to
out.
monitor because, you know, we could benefit from it.
No, I think it's just, with the rumblings and the misunderstanding, I think there does need to be a direct communication, just whatever. If I'm ready, but we don't need to vote on it? And we're
No.
good? All right, we're good. I'm good if you're good.
I'm good.
Yep, no
I'm not
plan.
good. No, because we would have to vote to change in second, and no one's interested in that.
But in the future, it might, because obviously, I know you got emails and people are talking about it. There's a lot of concern by everybody, regardless of where you fall and whether House Bill 99 is a good idea or a bad idea. There is concern among parents, children everywhere about school safety. And, you know, maybe it would be good if at a future board meeting that we get, you know, sort of if that becomes something we can just talk about, like how is our school prepared? What are we doing to make sure that we're in a good place without arming our teachers, you know, that we don't feel that that is something that is a good idea, but what are we doing?
Could we do that in the August or September meeting? Maybe have a special safety update, something, back to school? So it's like, we don't talk, that's not teaching and learning, that would be
Yeah, so I would probably have, you know, for example, myself or Sean Hinkle or Rob Brown and Officer Hiles and Chief Starnes from the Grandview Heights Police Department co-present on this topic.
That'd be ideal, because there have been a lot.
Well, they're the ones that do our training.
Right.
So they come here and they facilitate and lead our training for Alice. And they are Alice trained. That is a national training. And they are, you know, they work for Grandview Heights Police, but they're Alice trained to be trainers. And so then they train our staff. So they would be, and they're passionate about this topic and very knowledgeable, I might add, and great partners of the school.
And
So
that's
they would
good,
be,
and that was like, obviously in
So they'd be-
Uvalde, that
they'd-
was something that was like
yeah,
a
I
big
mean,
issue. Was-
and, you know, I hope Officer Hiles doesn't hear this, but you give him the microphone about this topic, I mean, you better get comfortable because he's going to talk to you about this for 30 minutes. He is passionate about this topic.
Because before House Bill 99, there was a Uvalde, like, there's been a lot, and I don't think it would be, like,
I think that's a great idea.
it's August, September, maybe not
Yeah,
too
it's a great
long,
idea.
Just back to school.
At a point, right, you know, whenever the best meeting is.
Yes, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I just, because we all, you know, as parents, we get the thing about Alice. And
Yes.
we know that our kids go
Yeah.
through drills,
Yes.
but I think everyone could use a refresher on exactly
Totally
what all the policies
understand.
are. And then we can, you know, work with our children at home too to.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, great suggestion.
Anything else that the board would like to
I'm
discuss?
done talking.
Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Hi.